The Jujutsu Kaisen fanbase is awful. It's the second coming of the Attack on Titan fanbase, and those are harsh words. With every passing chapter, the toxicity, impatience, and media illiteracy of the fanbase is being put on display. It's genuinely sad. I'm seeing a concerning amount of AOT fanisms amongst the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbase, be it the obnoxious leak culture or them forming concrete opinions off of single chapters. Even the existence of the Jujutsu subreddit is concerning. Getting a bit too close for comfort there, mate. So with all that in mind, let's talk about Jujutsu Kaisen and the fanbase it has spawned. A part of this video will contain manga spoilers, but I will warn you guys when we get to that point. Let's start with a problem that haunts both the manga readers and anime-only fans: the leaks. They are annoying to an unfathomable degree. If you use the internet and dabble in content relating to anime, which, judging by the fact that you're watching this video, you probably do, it's virtually impossible to avoid spoilers. Now, leaks are not unique to Jujutsu Kaisen. Every major manga suffers from them. One Piece does, Attack on Titan did. It's common, but not to this degree. And I know what some of you might be thinking: just block the main guy responsible for the leaks. Well, that's obviously not enough. People post stuff by the thousands without a spoiler warning, and if that wasn't bad enough, spoilers actually end up trending on Twitter because of how popular Jujutsu Kaisen is. How does one avoid that? Alright, you care so much that you give up Twitter, which, regardless of the context, is a good life decision, but even that's not enough. Spoilers are all over Instagram and to a lesser degree YouTube. It's unavoidable no matter who you are. Chances are you've already been spoiled of one or multiple major events from the manga. Even the panel I plan on using for the thumbnail is, technically speaking, a spoiler, but literally everybody has seen it, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Leaks are awful. They ruin the experience for those who don't keep up with the series weekly, and they usually lack the complete context of the chapter. Despite that, JJK fans have adopted this culture. Many of them are fine with and encourage the existence of leaks. They tweet out major events without a care in the world. No other fanbase is this bad when it comes to this aspect. I keep hearing stuff about Japanese authorities seemingly cracking down, but I have yet to see any tangible effects of the same. Come on boys, any day now. I don't think all leaks are inherently bad. A key animator list for a highly anticipated episode is, for the most part, fine. It's aimed at a small group of people, and I'd argue it helps promote the episode. But that's clearly not the same thing as some jackoff on Twitter leaking entire chapters and subsequent jackoffs reposting them without a spoiler warning. It's infuriating, and there's nothing we can do about it. That was the first major problem with the fanbase. On to the next one. And this is where the AOT fan-like behavior comes into play. And here's the promised spoiler warning. From this point on, I will discuss the events of the manga, so if you are not caught up to the 263rd chapter, click off. You've already seen the mid-roll ad, I've made my money, it's all good. So, the Shinjuku Showdown arc. It has divided the fanbase, and for no good reason in my opinion. Let's address their points of view, or lack thereof. This isn't a comprehensive review, just a few rough thoughts. I think the Gojo fight was masterfully done. Setting aside the scale, hype, and the back and forth nature of it, the fight perfectly fits into the overarching theme. The burden and isolation of being the strongest is the crux of Gojo's character, and the idea of him being rescued from the prison realm and immediately being thrust into a major fight is equal parts understandable and tragic. Also, I think the manga post chapter 236 is absolutely incredible. Setting aside the Gojo fight, I think it's the best this series has to offer, comparable with the peaks of the Shibuya arc. But of course, fans have many problems. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with critiquing a show. I do that all the time. The problem lies in the way the fans go about it. They form concrete, series-defining opinions off of single chapters, and that's an extremely toxic thing to do. AOT fans did the same thing, and when your actions are compared to those of the AOT fanbase, you're probably in the wrong. Fans are impatient. They refuse to let the series breathe and build stuff up. Everything must happen now. All conflicts must be resolved immediately. That's what they want. I made a tweet asking for flaws because I myself couldn't find any, and the alleged problem that came up the most was the fact that the fight has gone on for too long / it's repetitive, and short answer, no, it hasn't gone on for too long. It's probably the final final fight and it's not even 30 chapters long yet. That's nothing for a shonen manga. As for the repetitive allegations, I think you're wrong as well. The idea seems to be that characters show up, die, someone else shows up and repeat, except that's simply not true, is it? What have you been reading, Sorcery Fight? The fight is one big, continuous thing, not a series of short conflicts, and that ties in perfectly with the theme of the story. The idea of sorcerers dying and entrusting their will to the ones still alive. Higurama's death was a direct parallel to Nanami. Chozo's death was a familial sacrifice that saved Yuji, and while I never really cared about that brotherly dynamic, this scene genuinely made me emotional. As for Kashimo's death, who cares, he was barely a side character. This nuance is lost when you evaluate each chapter as its own entity as opposed to a part of a bigger and as of yet unfinished story. These opinions are spur of the moment and naturally they are mostly incorrect. However, fans think too highly of themselves and look at the story straying away from their headcanons as the author losing touch, and when we reach this stage we see fans going out of their way to find flaws with the story, which again is textbook AOT fan behavior. Did you seriously expect these two to do any considerable amount of damage to Sukuna? These two and their combined 5 chapters of screen time? The answer is no, but that's somehow a flaw, because again, you are willing to manufacture those. This fight is most likely the final one. If this doesn't go on for long and feature twists and turns, what will? Oh, but Kage is killing off our favorite characters. Yes, and if you like a character and feel bad when they die, that means you were invested, and that means the writing was in fact good. We've gone so far with this wannabe critic mindset that the very basic form of good writing is now considered a flaw. As a consequence of this whole thing, fans get too stuck in their ways and refuse to look at the series in any other light. Another complaint I came across a lot was the power system apparently not making sense, and again, it's just not true. Everybody knows JJK has a comprehensive, well put together power system. This fight intentionally deviated from a few established rules, as common sense didn't apply in the battle between the strongest. However, nothing in it was an aspull. In fact, I'd go as far as to say nothing in the entirety of Jujutsu Kaisen is an aspull. The Gojo fight was faithful to the power system, it simply utilized it in a manner we hadn't seen before. And that's the problem with the fanbase. Many of them clearly haven't been paying attention and label things they don't understand as aspulls. JJK's world building, of which the power system is a part, is so good. I know the setting is basically Tokyo but scary, but it's so well constructed. Every event makes sense. A binding vow is the building block of Jujutsu, so it's not surprising that Sukuna, the oldest sorcerer alive, can use them in a wide range of ways. His battle IQ is extremely high and at no point does his actions deviate from the established rules. Same with others. Both Yuta and Kenjaku's techniques were explained in the past, so this makes complete sense. Yuji being able to use certain techniques was hinted at all the way back in season 1, and Yuji being able to attack the soul directly was demonstrated through Mahito again back in season 1. Everything makes sense. So fans form strong opinions and viewpoints based on single chapters and refuse to budge when the story proves them wrong. When that happens, they conjure flaws out of thin air and use it to discredit the author, which ends up demonstrating the fact that they never really paid much attention to begin with, and ultimately it ends up polarizing the fan base. Fans make massive decisions like, the series is bad now so I must look for flaws, or this particular thing happening would ruin the series. An example of the latter is an improbable Gojo comeback. Some fans think Gojo's death ruined the series, while others think a Gojo comeback will ruin his conclusion, and both groups are wrong simply because you cannot make a decision like that without seeing how it happens and what it leads to. Here's my 2 cents. Gojo existed in a different plane altogether, so him losing to someone of comparable strength was, weirdly enough, heartwarming. However, I don't think that's the only possible conclusion to his character. Will he come back? Probably not. Although what Akutami says doesn't really matter. Even if he did plan on a Gojo comeback, he wouldn't come out and say it, would he? If Gojo does come back, I think it can work if somehow he manages to shatter the idea of him only being able to find joy when fighting someone as strong as him, and if he truly manages to overcome his isolation and his somewhat flawed view of strength. How? Well, it's not my job to figure out, is it? Much of the fan fanbase has closed off its mind. If a chapter doesn't appeal to a fan's headcanon, they start disliking the entire series. And that's such a sad way of reading something. There's only one thing I can recommend as a solution. Don't read this series weekly. Be like me and wait for a bunch of chapters to pile up and then binge through them. Although chances are you'll probably be spoiled in the meantime. Look, Jujutsu Kaisen is not without its flaws. That's its own discussion. But it's one of the best works the genre has to offer. And yes, I said genre, not demographic. I don't mean shonen, I mean action. Why do you want it to be over so quickly? Why would you parrot what other people say instead of thinking for yourself? Just read it like a normal person, that's all I got. That's about it. Liked the video? Check out this other bit of content on screen. Like and subscribe, and until next time.